Daniel walked down the quiet city street. The night air cooled against his skin. Streetlights flickered in a pattern he could not explain, almost as if they were breathing. The sidewalks were empty, yet he felt a presence, something unseen, watching him from just beyond the edges of his perception. He shook his head, trying to convince himself it was only imagination, only the tired mind playing tricks after a long day. But the feeling would not go away. It hovered like a shadow, subtle, but undeniable. He remembered reading about something strange in a book long ago, something called the observer effect. Tiny particles, electrons, photons. They behaved differently when observed, changing paths, choosing directions, as if reality itself paused. To answer the watcher, Daniel had always thought of it as a small, technical detail of physics, something confined to laboratories. But now, standing under the dim glow of a street lamp, he wondered, what if it is true for more than just tiny particles? The thought made his chest tighten, a mix of fear and curiosity. Could reality itself shift when no one was looking? He glanced at the lamplight above him and, almost instinctively, he looked away. Then he focused again, curious, almost daring reality to respond. For a moment, the light seemed to flicker in response to his attention, a subtle pulse he could barely detect. Daniel frowned, questioning his own senses. Was this coincidence, fatigue, or had something deeper stirred in the very fabric of the world? He continued walking, each step echoing against the empty buildings. A cool breeze whispered past him, carrying distant sounds of a city that was alive, yet strangely muted. He noticed the way a puddle reflected the lamplight, rippling slightly, as if it had a mind of its own. He stopped and stared, captivated by the simple, strange beauty of it. A strange thought crossed his mind. What if I am not just observing this world, but participating in shaping it? The idea felt almost dangerous, almost forbidden, yet undeniably thrilling. Daniel's heart beat faster as he considered it. If his attention could influence the smallest particles, could it reach farther, touch more, shape more than he had ever imagined? His mind wandered to all the times he had tried to control outcomes. Small things at first, spilled coffee, missed emails, forgotten appointments. Then bigger things, arguments, relationships, career moves, life plans. He had always believed that effort, attention, and action were the keys to influence. But now, standing under the night sky, he wondered if perhaps it worked differently. What if the less he tried to control, the more reality flowed around him, responding to the silent spaces of his mind rather than the frantic activity of his hands? Daniel took a deep breath, letting the idea sink in. He paused at a street corner, looking at the faintly glowing traffic lights ahead. He imagined letting go of expectation entirely, stepping back and watching without interference. A shiver ran down his spine, not of fear, but of anticipation. He felt on the edge of something vast, something invisible, yet undeniably present, a mystery that had been hiding in plain sight, waiting for him to notice. And in that moment, the city felt alive in a way he had never known. Every shadow, every flicker of light, every distant sound seemed to hum with possibility. Daniel realized he was not simply walking through the city. He was entering an experiment, one in which observation, attention, and awareness were the instruments, and the results might just change everything he thought he knew about life, about reality, about himself. He took another cautious step forward, heart racing, mind alert. A quiet smile formed on his lips as he whispered to himself, I am about to discover something no one else may ever fully understand. Daniel sat on a quiet bench in the park, the city's hum fading into a soft background. He replayed the strange moments from the night before, the flickering lights, the rippling puddles, the subtle shifts that seemed to respond to his presence. He could not shake the question that had formed in his mind. What if observation itself changes reality? He thought back to the small experiments he had read about in school, where scientists watched particles through complicated machines. Electrons would act one way when unobserved, but completely differently when someone measured them. It was as if the universe itself paused, waiting for the observer to decide its next move. Daniel imagined that on a much larger scale, in everyday life, reality might behave in ways he had never noticed. Perhaps every glance, every thought, every focused attention nudged the world just slightly. He remembered a simple example he had seen in a book. A plant, small and fragile, seemed healthier when people noticed and cared for it. He smiled, thinking how odd it was, a tiny demonstration, yet it hinted at something much bigger. The more he considered it, the more he realized observation was not passive. It was not simply seeing or noticing things. It was interacting, participating, influencing the unfolding of events. Even something as simple as watching a conversation, Daniel understood, could change its tone, its flow, its outcome. He thought about moments in his own life, arguments that escalated when he focused too much, laughter that spread when he relaxed and allowed it. Patterns began to emerge in his memory, subtle but undeniable. Observation shaped not only the smallest particles in a lab, but the moments, choices, and relationships that filled his life. Daniel closed his eyes, imagining reality as a vast field of energy, every attention, every awareness, a gentle hand touching the surface. Some touches small, almost invisible, others shaping waves that rippled far and wide. He felt a thrill of possibility. If my awareness changes reality, even in small ways, what could happen if I truly understood this principle? The thought made him both excited and uneasy. It meant that control might not be found in forcing outcomes, but in how he directed his own attention. It meant that letting go, pausing, and simply observing without interference could be just as powerful as trying to act. He opened his eyes and looked at the world around him. The wind moved gently through the trees, the leaves shifting in patterns, almost like a response to his attention. A bird landed nearby, pausing as if aware of his gaze, then continued as if reassured by his stillness. Daniel felt a quiet awe. Reality felt alive, responsive, and subtle. It was not magical, not fantastical, yet it carried a deep sense of intelligence, of order, of interaction beyond the ordinary senses. He realized that observation was like a conversation, not with words, not with sound, but with awareness itself. Every act of noticing was a question, a suggestion, a choice, and reality, in its own mysterious way, responded. Daniel's curiosity burned brighter. He understood he had only glimpsed the surface. There was more to learn, more to explore, more to experience. And the first step, he knew, was to let go of the idea that he needed to control, to simply observe, quietly, and watch. How reality began to shift in response. Daniel woke the next morning with a sense of quiet curiosity. The strange experiences from the night before lingered in his mind like a gentle hum. He made his coffee slowly, noticing the warmth in his hands, the aroma rising in soft curls. Instead of rushing through the day as usual, he decided to experiment, to test the idea that less control might change everything. At first, it was difficult. Daniel realized how much he always tried to control every small detail, the order of his schedule, the way conversations unfolded, the outcomes of tasks and decisions. It was exhausting, almost invisible work that he had accepted as necessary. But today, he would try something different. He would let life move without forcing it, without constantly watching and intervening. His first test came at work, a meeting that he usually prepared for, obsessively approached. Daniel took a deep breath and decided to simply observe, to let the discussion unfold naturally. At first, he felt anxious, a quiet tension in his chest. But slowly, he noticed something strange. The conversation flowed more smoothly than ever. Ideas emerged that he had never expected. Solutions appeared without effort. Colleagues smiled more. The atmosphere felt lighter, almost playful. Daniel realized that the act of letting go, of not forcing control, had shifted the energy in the room. On his walk home, he continued to experiment. He noticed a puddle on the sidewalk and paused, allowing it to reflect the evening lights without interference. A bird landed nearby, cautious at first, but relaxed as Daniel stayed still and calm. Even the traffic seemed to move in a gentle rhythm, as if agreeing with his willingness to step back. The world felt lighter, less rigid, more responsive. It was as though by releasing his grip, he had opened a space for life to flow. Daniel reflected on the lesson quietly. Control, he realized, is an illusion in many ways. Effort, planning, and attention are important, yes, but forcing outcomes can create tension, resistance, and unexpected obstacles. The more he observed, without interference, the more subtle patterns emerged. The more he allowed, the more life seemed to arrange itself in ways that surprised him. It was not about doing nothing, but about choosing where to place his focus, about understanding that observation itself is powerful, and sometimes less is more. By evening, Daniel tried one last experiment. He sat quietly in his apartment, not thinking of problems, not planning solutions. He simply observed, breathing, listening to the faint sounds of the city beyond his window. At first, his mind wanted to interfere, to analyze, to control. But he let the thoughts drift like clouds, unclaimed and untangled, in that quiet space. He felt something subtle shift, a sense of calm, clarity, and connection, as if the world itself responded to his willingness to simply be present. Daniel realized that letting go of control was not passive. It was an active engagement with life, a choice to observe, to participate without forcing. He understood that this was a principle he could apply in every moment, from the smallest details to the largest challenges. Observation without interference had its own power, and the more he practiced, the more he felt the subtle, beautiful shifts in reality that others might never notice. By the end of the day, Daniel smiled softly to himself. For the first time, he felt a sense of partnership with reality, not domination, not struggle, but a quiet, responsive dance. And he knew that this was only the beginning, the first step in a journey to understand how consciousness and observation truly shape the world. Daniel sat quietly by the window, the evening light fading into soft shades of orange and purple. The world outside seemed ordinary at first glance, yet he could feel the pulse of something deeper beneath it all. He thought about the experiments he had been trying, the moments of letting go, the awareness he had focused without interference, and slowly, a new understanding began to unfold in his mind. Consciousness, he realized, was not merely a passive observer of reality. It was not only a witness to events, it was an active participant, a subtle force woven into the very fabric of life. Every thought, every intention, every act of noticing shaped the world in ways that were often invisible. Even the smallest shift in attention could ripple outward, touching more than he could see. Daniel remembered stories of meditation masters, of artists, of scientists. They spoke of a quiet awareness, a state of observation that changed not only their perception, but the reality around them. He thought about the moments in his own life, the times when stepping back instead of pushing forward created unexpected opportunities. A conversation that flowed naturally, a problem that resolved itself, a small joy that appeared unplanned. He saw the connection clearly now. Observation itself is a tool, a bridge between the mind and the world. He imagined consciousness as a light, spreading outward in gentle waves, every act of noticing, every moment of presence, a pulse that reached into the unseen. Daniel realized that the universe might not be a rigid, fixed machine as he had once believed. Instead, it could be more like a living web, responsive, intelligent, and subtly guided by awareness. And he began to wonder, what if every person, every mind, is part of this web, influencing reality in ways they do not even realize? The thought both thrilled and humbled him. He realized the weight of awareness, the responsibility carried in every act of observation. It was not about controlling others or forcing outcomes. It was about understanding that every intention, every focus, contributes to the unfolding story of reality, and that awareness, more than action, could guide, shape, and transform experiences. Daniel leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes. He recalled the night when the streetlights flickered, the puddle rippled, the city itself seemed to respond. It was not coincidence, he realized. It was a subtle interaction between his consciousness and the world, a dialogue he had only just begun to notice. And the more he allowed himself to observe without interference, the more he felt connected, as if the invisible threads of awareness were weaving him into the very fabric of life. He smiled softly, understanding that this insight was both simple and profound. Reality responds not only to action, but to observation. Consciousness is not confined inside the skull. It reaches outward, shaping the world in ways both small and large. And Daniel knew that he had only glimpsed the surface. There were deeper levels to explore, patterns to notice, connections to understand. As the evening deepened into night, Daniel felt a quiet He understood that the power to influence reality was not in forcing it, but in being fully present, fully aware. Observation itself became a tool, a way of participating in life without resistance, and he felt the subtle thrill of knowing that the universe is alive, responsive, and waiting for consciousness to notice, to interact, to shape the unfolding of reality. For the first time, Daniel felt less like a passive witness and more like a participant in a vast, invisible dialogue. And he knew that this was only the beginning. The next steps would take him deeper into the mysteries of awareness, intention, and the shifting patterns of reality. The next morning, Daniel decided to put his insights into action. He wanted to see if the ideas about observation and letting go could truly influence the world around him. He started small, noticing a plant on his windowsill. He had tended to it before with care, but today he tried something different. He simply observed, without expectations, without trying to force growth or change. He watched the sunlight fall across its leaves, the gentle movement as it reached upward, and he felt a subtle connection, as if the plant itself responded to the quiet attention he offered. Encouraged, Daniel extended his experiment to daily life. On his way to work, he observed the people around him, not judging, not expecting. He noticed a passerby smiling unexpectedly, a friend greeting him warmly, a moment of kindness that might have gone unnoticed before. He realized that even small, mindful observation could open space for unexpected interactions. Reality seemed lighter, more fluid, more responsive. He began to feel that life was not a fixed series of events, but a flowing web, shaped by awareness. At work, Daniel tried again, letting go of the need to control outcomes. A project that he normally approached with tension and careful planning unfolded with ease. Ideas came from unexpected places. Colleagues collaborated without conflict. Solutions appeared naturally. He noticed that the act of observing without forcing allowed the energy of the situation to move in new directions. It was as if the space he'd created by stepping back became a channel for life to respond in surprising ways. Back at home, Daniel experimented in his personal life. He listened in conversations without interrupting, without anticipating the next word. He let people speak fully present with their words, fully present with the moment. He noticed a subtle shift. Connections deepened. Misunderstandings faded. Moments became richer, even in simple acts, like cooking or cleaning. Daniel felt a subtle responsiveness from the world. The day felt more alive, more vibrant, more open to possibilities. Daniel realized that these experiments were teaching him something profound. Observation is not just a passive act. It is a creative force, a way to interact with reality. The less he tried to force outcomes, the more the universe revealed its subtle patterns. The more he allowed life to unfold naturally, the more he discovered hidden opportunities and unexpected joys. Even moments of stillness carried a quiet power, shaping experiences in ways that were gentle yet undeniable. By the end of the day, Daniel reflected on his experiments. He understood that letting go, observing without interference, was not a trick or a superstition. It was a principle grounded in the way consciousness interacts with reality. Each attention, each mindful observation, each silent moment of presence had weight, influence, and subtle power, and Daniel felt a quiet thrill, knowing that he could continue to explore, continue to experiment, continue to notice. Each day, a living laboratory, each moment, an opportunity to engage with life in a deeper, more conscious way. For the first time, Daniel felt confident in the dance between his mind and the world. He had discovered that observation was a tool, letting go was a key, and awareness was a bridge. And he knew that reality was not fixed or rigid. It was a living, responsive canvas, shaped by the very act of noticing. Daniel sat quietly in his apartment, the soft glow of the evening light filling the room. He reflected on the experiments he had carried out over the past days, the moments when he let go, observed without interference, and allowed life to unfold naturally. He realized how much had shifted, not in dramatic ways, but in subtle, meaningful patterns, small coincidences, unexpected opportunities, moments of clarity and connection that seemed to appear effortlessly. He thought about the lessons he had learned. Observation was more than noticing. It was participation. Letting go of control was not passivity. It was trust. Consciousness was not confined within the skull. It reached outward, shaping reality in ways both subtle and profound. He felt a quiet awe at the realization, a sense of being part of something vast, alive, and responsive. Daniel smiled softly, understanding that life was no longer just happening to him. He was an active participant in the unfolding of events. Each thought carried weight. Each intention nudged the world. Even silence had influence, and even presence could guide the flow of reality. He remembered the first night, under the street, feeling the subtle shifts around him. He thought about the puddles, the flickering lights, the city that seemed alive in response to his awareness. Now he understood that those moments had been invitations, invitations to notice, to experiment, to explore the deep connection between consciousness and reality. Dang Yi thought about the viewers, imagining them watching, curious and open. He knew that the principle was simple yet profound. Step back, observe, release the need to control, and allow life to respond.